3 months later, the wedding day arrived. The event center in Lekki was decorated in gold and royal blue, filled with everyone who mattered: politicians, business people, society women in their finest gele, their jewelry catching the light like small suns. Adunni stood in her mother's coral beads and custom George wrapper, staring at herself in the mirror, hollow. The woman looking back at her was a stranger wearing her face. Buki adjusted her gele, unusually quiet, her hands shaking slightly as she walked. "You sure say you won't do this?" Buki asked in pidgin. "Does it matter?" Adunni replied flatly. "Adunni, I need to tell you something about that night at the bukateria." But there was a commotion outside, shouting, the sound of security struggling with someone. Adunni rushed to the window, her heart suddenly pounding for reasons she couldn't name. Tunde was there, being held back by 3 bouncers, desperately trying to reach the venue. His shirt was torn, his eye already swollen, but he kept fighting, kept calling her name. "Adunni, please, make you hear me out." Chidi appeared, smooth as ever in his white agbada, his smile cruel and triumphant. "I'll handle this disturbance," he said, and there was something in his tone that made Adunni's blood run cold. Adunni's father suddenly burst through the bridal room door, holding an old phone, Buki's phone. His face was dark with rage, but not directed at Tunde. His chest heaved with fury and something that looked like shame. "This wedding no go hold," he announced to the stunned crowd in pidgin, his voice carrying across the entire venue. "Daddy, waiting," Adunni started, confused. He held up the phone, his hand shaking. Buki's WhatsApp messages, all of them, to Chidi. The story spilled out like palm wine from a broken calabash, bitter and impossible to reclaim. Buki had been feeding Chidi information about Adunni and Tunde for months. She was jealous. She'd loved Tunde herself, had watched him fall for Adunni, and wanted her cousin to suffer the way she was suffering. The meeting at the bukateria? Chidi had summoned Tunde there to threaten him, to tell him he'd destroy Adunni's father's business and have Tunde arrested on false charges unless Tunde disappeared from Adunni's life forever. The money Buki saw? Tunde had refused it, thrown the envelope back in Chidi's face with disgust, and walked away. But the real twist came when Adunni's grandmother stepped forward from the crowd, her old eyes sharp behind her glasses, her walking stick tapping the marble floor with authority. "The boy tried to tell you, but you no gree listen," she said to Adunni in pidgin. "I came to myself, told me everything, so I do my own investigation." She turned to Chidi, her gaze like a blade. "Tell them about the other 3 women where you don't engage, one in Abuja, one in Port Harcourt, one in Surulere." The crowd gasped. Someone shouted "Tufiakba" in Igbo. The air seemed to crackle with scandal. Chidi's own mother fainted dramatically. Chidi fled through the back exit, his white agbada flying behind him like a surrender flag, his G-Wagon's tires screeching as he escaped the scene of his public humiliation. Buki was dragged away by her ashamed parents, her mother cursing her in rapid Yoruba, promising punishments that would last for generations. And in the middle of it all, Adunni stood frozen, her mind trying to process everything, until she heard that voice. "Adunni." Tunde stood at the entrance, breathing hard, his eye bruised and swollen, his simple buba torn at the shoulder, but his eyes clear and full of a love that had survived everything. Adunni walked through the crowd, but not towards Chidi's empty spot at the altar. She walked straight past the high table, past the Ashwaibi ladies with their shocked faces and dropped mouths, past the DJ who had stopped the music mid-song, out the door to where Tunde stood. "You should have told me," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I tried. You wouldn't listen. I was scared. I thought you chose money over me." "Adunni," Tunde said softly, taking her hands in his, ignoring the hundreds of eyes watching them. "That money, if it changed my life, if it make me big man overnight, but I couldn't take it because none of it means anything if I lose you. I would rather be poor with you than rich without you." Adunni's father approached slowly, his expression unreadable. The crowd held its breath. Then he did something no one expected. He placed Adunni's hand in Tunde's, his eyes wet with tears. "I was wrong," he said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. "You worked for me for 5 years, slept on a mat in the shop, never complained, never stole even a thread. You loved my craft like your own, and you loved my daughter more than yourself." He paused, his voice cracking. "That's the man I want for her." The crowd erupted in cheers. Someone restarted the music. Flavor's Ololufe filled the air. People danced. The venue that had been prepared for a wedding of convenience became the celebration of something far more precious, real love, tested and proven. 6 months later, they married under that same Iroko tree by the Osun River, the ceremony simple but filled with genuine joy. Adunni wore asoke she wove herself, a pattern that told their story, broken threads that found their way back together, creating something more beautiful than perfection ever could. Tunde built them a small house beside the workshop in Oshogbo. Together, they expanded the business. Their designs became famous across West Africa, featured in Vogue and worn by Nollywood stars and regular people alike. Every piece they made carried the same message woven into its heart: true love doesn't count the cost. As for Buki, she eventually apologized, broken and remorseful. Her jealousy had cost her more than she'd ever imagined. Adunni forgave her. Grandmother insisted on it, but some threads once cut can never be woven quite the same way again. Their relationship would always bear the scar. And Chidi, the last anyone heard was he was still running, still lying, dodging baby mamas from Lagos to Abuja, his reputation destroyed, his business connections severed. He thought love was something you could buy with a G-Wagon and empty promises. Life had taught him otherwise, brutally and publicly. But in Oshogbo, in a workshop filled with the sound of looms and laughter and Afrobeats playing softly from the small radio, Adunni and Tunde would sit in the evenings. Their children played at their feet, 2 girls and a boy, each learning the craft, each learning the story. And as the sun set over the Osun River, painting the sky in colors no loom could replicate, they would remember the pattern that almost broke, but instead became their masterpiece.